Welcome back. You're watching Eye on Africa here on live from Paris on France 24. Let's take a look at our top stories in this edition. A new vice president in South Sudan. President Salva Kiir named Taban Deng Gai to the role, replacing former rebel leader Riek Machar, who left the capital last week. We'll be getting the latest from Juba. Religious violence spilling over into the Nigerian capital. Abuja has witnessed 2 recent attacks on its Christian community as displaced populations, most of them Muslim, continue to flee Boko Haram in the northeast. And his name rhymes with Congolese, rumba, and scandal. Koffi Olomide is in hot water after a video showed the singer kicking one of his dancers. Olomidé apologized, but not before an upcoming concert in Zambia was canceled. A new vice president in South Sudan. President Salva Kiir named Taban Deng Gai to the role. Taban Deng Gai was formerly President Kiir's chief negotiator and mining minister. Rebel leader Riek Machar had previously been named vice president in accordance with an international peace deal, putting an end to the civil war in the world's youngest country. But Machar left the capital last week. He says he'll only return if a neutral force backed by the African Union is deployed. Joining us now from Juba is Simona Fulton. Simona, how did this decision unfold?
Well, it all happened fairly quickly, which is why some speculate that there must have been some kind of prior agreement between President Salva Kiir and Taban Deng Gai. On Thursday last week, the president issued an ultimatum to Riek Machar, calling upon the first vice president to return to Juba within 48 hours. Then on Saturday, a faction of the SPLM-IO, the opposition, met here in Juba and decided to nominate Taban Deng Gai as a temporary replacement for Machar. He is now supposed to be sworn in tomorrow to become the first vice president of South Sudan.
Now, what does this decision mean for the peace deal?
Well, things are going to get rather complicated from here. We essentially have a split within the opposition now. On the one hand, we have Taban Deng Gai, supported by a group of IO of relatively uncertain ranks here in Juba. And on the other side, we have Machar, who has pretty much taken with him a lot of the generals and who still has substantial support within the IO. And, just as this was unfolding over the weekend, Machar actually fired Taban Deng Gai from his post as Minister of Minister of Petroleum. So we have these 2 factions, and what is a little bit uncertain is which generals support whom, but it seems that Machar still has substantial support, so we will see how this unfolds. What is really interesting to see is how the international community will react to this. So far, they have been fairly quiet. A lot of the embassies here have been pretty busy evacuating their staff. So it is uncertain whether the guarantors of this peace deal will in fact endorse Taban Deng Gai. But in the end, they may not be left with any other choice, because the peace deal essentially risks unraveling if they don't accept this new nomination for the post of the first vice president. And that may be, in fact, the only option they have at this moment.
Simona Fulton, thank you so much for joining us live from Juba. We will keep an eye on that situation as it unfolds in the next few days and weeks. Religious violence gains. Abuja, the Nigerian capital, has witnessed 2 recent attacks on its Christian community. A pastor was killed as she was preaching in a Muslim-majority neighborhood, and a church was burned to the ground. President Muhammadu Buhari has yet to speak publicly about the attacks, sparking outrage among some Christian leaders. Moise Gomez and Rosie Colley report from the capital's Kubwa suburb.
Eunice Olawale's life was cut short by machete-wielding attackers. Her widower and 7 children are in shock. Christian pastors have come from far and wide to pay their respects and to mourn her loss. For many here, Eunice died carrying out her duty and a core tenet of the church, evangelist preaching.
She was like a sheep in the midst of lions, but she damned the consequences. And she went there to preach. She was helpless, but we give God all the glory because I know she's rejoicing. Heaven is celebrating her now.
Christians and Muslims have lived side by side in Kubwa for years, but a recent influx of Muslims fleeing Boko Haram has tipped the religious balance. It is now more common to hear Hausa, the lingua franca of the north, spoken than it is English. Muslim elders are aware that radical Islam could infiltrate here and are trying to counter it.
Whenever we notice there are new incoming, we try to meet them wherever they are, to tell them how far we have come from in terms of peace within the Kubwa community.
Nigeria's main Christian body has criticised the government for not immediately condemning the recent spate of attacks. Prominent politicians attended the funeral.
The federal government, the law agencies will leave no stone unturned to find these people and bring them to justice.
For many here, though, who've lost a colleague and a friend, such words come too late. Many Christians feel that more needs to be done to protect their religious freedom.
Defending press freedom, Reporters Without Borders is calling for the release of a Burundian journalist held reportedly since Friday. Jean Bigirimana with the independent Iwaku newspaper is believed to be in the hands of the National Intelligence Bureau. Pushing for change in South Africa, the Democratic Alliance is hoping to upset the political balance on August 3rd. The opposition party is neck and neck in polls with the historic ANC in several cities across the country, including in Johannesburg. Our reporters there spent the day with the mayoral candidate Herman Mashaba, who is aiming to replace his ANC rival.
Herman Mashaba lives in one of Johannesburg's wealthiest suburbs. He's a self-made millionaire with business interests in mining and cosmetics. Mashaba, who grew up poor, only decided to go into politics 2 years ago. He's now the mayoral candidate for Johannesburg.
I've made it abundantly clear, I'm not in this game to steal people's money. For me, this project is about saving South Africa. It's about, it's a referendum against ANC and Jacob Zuma. That if we South Africans are not going to use Johannesburg to stop this rot, then my country's in trouble.
He says corruption in government was his main motivation to support the opposition, and he's working hard to be elected. He leaves home at 8 every morning to start campaigning. On this day, Mashaba's message was about the expense of toll roads. His party, the DA, has promised to drop them should they come to power.
E-tolls are the enemies of social inclusion. E-tolls perpetuate the exclusion of the poor, the very people who need to be mobile to pull themselves out of poverty.
His followers are convinced that change is possible.
I'm telling you, there is going to be a change. I got that in my blood, I feel it in my blood. Now my blood has changed, it's blue now.
Okay.
In the last 6 months, Mashaba has hardly been to his office. Politics seem to be more demanding than business.
You work in this difficult environment, and how do you measure political success? Whereas here, every single day, I can know whether I'm making money or not. So easy business to run. But I believe privileged human beings like myself, we have that responsibility.
He's confident he can deliver on his promises, and job creation is #1 on his list. More than 30% of Johannesburg's population is unemployed. He's counting on the support of small businesses.
So we're asking people of Johannesburg, give us the 5 years, and if we let you down, punish us, don't give us a second chance.
To win the capital city from the ruling party won't be easy. But for this millionaire who turned poverty into prosperity, anything is possible.
He's the star of Congolese rumba, but Koffi Olomide is in hot water over yet another moral incident. The singer was caught on camera mistreating one of his dancers in Kenya, where Olomide was performing. He has since been extradited to Kinshasa, where he apologized. Laurent Berstecker has the story.
He is known for his catchy tunes and his flamboyant style. But on Sunday, Koffi Olomide looked almost sheepish as he issued a public apology to his fans.
It weighs on my conscience. And I must apologize to my friends. I am profoundly sorry for what has happened. It was a moment of madness, a moment of confusion.
The Congolese singer was filmed kicking one of his dancers right after landing at Nairobi's Kenyatta Airport last Friday. Olomidé initially denied the attack but was forced to acknowledge the facts after the video went viral. The 60-year-old was taken into custody and later deported by Kenyan authorities, who cancelled his Nairobi concerts. The incident also prompted Zambia to cancel a show set to take place in Lusaka this week.
Actually, it was my wish that they cancel his concert. I didn't like what he did in public, whatever issues they were facing in the group, but the way he reacted in public, it wasn't good. So it was very unfortunate, and I'm happy that that show is cancelled. I think he has learned a lesson.
It wasn't Koffi Olomidé's first scandal. During his career, the African pop icon has been faced with several accusations of abuse. In 2012, a French court charged him with 3 counts of rape, prompting him to flee to Kinshasa without waiting for the verdict.
That's the end of this edition of Eye on Africa. Do stay tuned. There's more news coming up on France 24. Stay with us.